We do this every month, and still I forget if it unmutes automatically or not. And it doesn't. Today I learned. Hello, everyone. Welcome to October. Spooky season has begun, and spiced pumpkin latte thingamajiggies at Starbucks. That kind of stuff. What is happening, y'all? We're missing a couple of people. Sean, I think he might be joining later. That's what he mentioned. Clifford, our flying .NET MAUI engineer, who is also doubles as a commercial airline pilot. I think he found out earlier today that he has, like, I don't know, a flight or something at 4 a.m., so he wasn't joining. But luckily, you have all the fun people. It's Brandon, it's Vlad, and James, I think, had some technical issues, but he will be right back. Vlad, what's going on?
Yeah, hello. It's Oktoberfest month, so
That
glad to see
too.
you all here. Yeah, it was last 2 months. It was pretty busy for me. I finally finished as an aspirant my education in university and successfully defended my PhD defense. Yeah, so yeah, thank you.
Amazing
Awesome.
work.
Congrats,
And
Vlad.
yeah, continue working in university as a teacher now. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sorry, Dr. Vladislav, PhD.
Doctor.
Sorry, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how all the titles work, man.
Yeah. Welcome to
You're
No,
my
very good. Very good.
officially the smartest
Awesome
person
job.
on the team.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you weren't already.
Exactly. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and Hacktoberfest, absolutely. I totally forgot. Well, I didn't forget about that, but just for this moment, Hacktoberfest, always in October, where you have a little bit of extra motivation, stimulation to contribute to your favorite open source project, .NET MAUI Toolkit. Um, because now you can earn digital badges. I think they do everything digital now. Before you could get like actual code for cotton, you could get a T-shirt, but now it's just digital badges, which is still very, very amazing. You can add that to your LinkedIn profile and share it on X and Blue Sky and Mastodon and all the threads and all the social media channels that you could find. So really, James, back James, move on.
Yes, I'm back. I had a. Ooh.
Yeah. I'm
There's
gonna
a
mute
lot
you
of
real quick,
noise
James.
coming from James.
Your microphone sounds like you're in a hurricane.
I hope not. There's
Feel free
hurricanes
to
going
unmute
on.
yourself whenever you think you've got it fixed. But yeah, it sounded just like.
We've muted you here in StreamYard, James.
Cool.
Okay, while you get it figured out, Brendan,
I'm doing good.
what's going on?
Oh man, yeah, crazy week. I was at a conference called Tech Bash last week where I got to give my first keynote ever.
Ooh.
Been doing this for about a decade, or doing the conference circuit for about a decade, and finally got to give my first keynote, which was really exciting. And then I gave 2 more talks at the conference, one of which was on .NET MAUI, which people were really excited about .NET MAUI at Tech Bash. So we've got some good vibes rolling. That's over in Eastern Pennsylvania.
Nice. Very good. Very cool. Yeah, it's a little bit too far from me. I wasn't there. James, I don't hear a whoosh sound and you're unmuted.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
perfect.
Perfect. Okay. That was the settings that was auto leveling my mic in the browser, and that apparently was a big no-no.
Today we've learned. What's been going on with you, James? Working hard at the media element. Anything else going on in
Yes.
your life?
Well, media element is my life. No, kidding. It's really fun for me. I enjoy it. I've actually pretty much been doing it full time for at least the last couple of months because it is something that I found to be the funnest thing in my life right now in terms of free time.
Perfect. That sounds amazing. And I think looking at the agenda, which is always open source, everything is open source about us. Well, almost everything. We have the agenda right here, and I saw your name a couple of times in there, James. We're going to hear a lot from you today. Actually, Gerald, how are you? Well, thank you, friends. Thank you for asking. I'm good. Oh, I think in November in Seattle. Hopefully, I will pop up somewhere on a stream.
Oh, he's back. Gerald, your mic cut out,
Hello,
but
hello.
I think you're back
Is it-
now.
Oh, okay, good. I'll just keep talking. And next week is already exciting too. We have Tekorama in the Netherlands, which is another amazing
I
event
love
here in
Tekorama.
the Netherlands, in Utrecht. And a couple of friends are coming over: David Ortnau, Maddie Montequilla, and Sweeky, who we haven't seen that much, but Sweeky Satpati, if I pronounce that correctly. Yeah, she will be coming over too, and I think Sam Basu is here from Progress Telerik. So all kinds of Maui friends, and of course, much more great speakers. And I'm kidnapping them to Cologne for a .NET Maui Day in Germany at the Microsoft Office too. So
Sweet.
we will have all these amazing speakers there too, with about 100 people attending. So that will be fun week next week.
I'm not jealous
Probably
at all.
not.
That
Looking at
awful.
all the locations here, reading from Buenos Aires, from Ukraine. This is not relevant to you at all, but I'm gonna have fun. So we did a couple of releases in the past month, which is always a fun story too, because I did like Media Element and Camera, and that was like easy peasy. And then it was like, oh, Community Toolkit, what should we make the version number? Because we had like the biggest change in there was like the AOT compatibility. I think we talked about that last month, so there's a whole stream about that. But we were like, okay, is that a major version? Not really. So we bumped it up kind of like 9.1 instead of like 9.0.3 or 4. I don't know which way we went. But yeah, so 9.1 is out there, and I see upcoming releases for the markup package. It's been a little while since we heard about that. Do you have something on the agenda, or should you just talk about it now?
No, so we just missed this one when we did all the releases last month.
Okay.
The big update, we also talked about this one last month, was we also added AOT support for this NuGet package, which was insanely easy. I mean, granted, I spent way too long figuring out how to implement AOT support for CommunityToolkit.maui, so that helped. But yeah, when I got to markup, I think that PR was like 2 lines of code. So yeah, it's ready. And same, it's just AOT supports the new thing, but we'll bump up the minor version just to hopefully nudge people to look at the release notes, look at the docs. Whereas, I don't know, to me, a bug fix point release is more like, yeah, I can update it right away. I don't really have to worry about it. They're just fixing bugs. But yeah, AOT could break things. There's some possible, we'll chat about it more with Sean later today when he joins, but it's possible AOT broke a couple things in CommunityToolkit.maui. They could be related to what Sean's working on, which again, we'll talk about later when he joins us. But we'll see. So yeah, another minor version bump just to let people know, like, hey, maybe go check the release notes before you install this to see that we added AOT. And that way, if things act differently, but you didn't change any of your code, okay, yeah, it's probably on us.
There's a lot of that going on. As a little sidestep, that reminds me. Also, what's happening? Apple, of course, released their new stuff, iOS 18, Xcode 16 that comes together with that. Not super relevant to like the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, but definitely relevant to .NET MAUI itself, because we didn't have support for Xcode 16 day one. We do have it now for .NET 8. So there is some stuff going on there. Check out the repository on the .NET MAUI repository on GitHub. We have some information there. If you can't figure it out, please feel free to ping me. I'll sort you out. And then, of course, like .NET 9 will have support for Xcode 16 on day one. And then the other big thing is if you're using tabs or whatever on iOS 18. So if you're running your app on iOS 18 built against Xcode 16, tabs for iOS are suddenly at the top. They just changed it after like 17 years. So, I think we have... Sorry?
Do they update in the HIG, the Human Interface Guidelines?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Because there's not really a great way to kind of like revert to the old behavior. So that's been interesting. A couple of people mentioned like, oh, I don't want this, blah, blah. We found a way to kind of like revert, but it's going to be interesting how that all works out and how that's going to go. So if you see things changing, it's not just us, but we're working on it. Let us know how it goes. Cool.
It's Google engineer in Apple.
Sorry?
It's a Google engineer in Apple.
Yeah, maybe they infiltrated. They were like, "Yes, I'm going to do it."
Right.
But the thing about Apple, you can say what you will, but Android is like backwards compatible until forever. Like they will just deprecate it, and it will say like, "Oh, it's deprecated," but it will work like forever. You can do top tabs, bottom tabs, all the things, but it will still work. So that's pretty.
They're
cool.
still supporting the V4 support libraries in Android 35,
Okay.
Wow.
and that
Yeah.
is like pre like Android 4.
Yeah.
We're talking like
So-
original Android support libraries are still technically working, and they're not listed as deprecated yet. There's
Okay.
other things that are newer that are deprecated, but those V4 libraries are like probably going to be there when we're old and gray.
They will. I'm getting there,
I hope
Jane.
not.
They will. They will keep things in alpha and beta like forever, but they are also never deprecate things. So that's kind of like that's Google. Anyway, proposals. James, add support for local files and packages resources in Media Element. What's up with that?
We talked about this last month, I believe, and we came to the conclusion that using the same name for the source library, like because we were using what do you call it? We had I think a generator for it, or what is it called? Well, anyways, we had it for the source. We were using media source from we created our own library for that type converter. Yeah, sorry, we had a type converter, media source converter, and basically I wanted to reuse that, and that was sort of like, yeah, that name doesn't really work for anything other than say a media source, and I don't really want to just duplicate that entire thing in order to reuse it, and I wanted suggestions or ideas what people can suggest as an alternative to using a media source because it fits all our needs. Or should I just duplicate it and rename it?
I thought we landed on image source last month.
Okay. See, that's fine with me. I just couldn't find it. That was my question. So if image source is fine with everybody, I'll just go do that then, and we can ignore this entire conversation.
Or actually,
Yeah,
now that I say
no,
that,
definitely useful. It's coming back to me now. This was about the image that's shown whenever you're playing only audio.
Yeah. Well, not the audio. No, that's the poster. That's completely separate. I'm thinking of the notification image.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So whenever you're playing media and you go to kind of like the background and you see it on your lock screen, whatever's playing there, is going to be the image. Yep. Got it. Yeah, I think we said image source, and then I think we said also rename kind of like metadata artwork URL or URI. What does it say? I can't really read it. Remove the URI part because it's not a URI anymore if you're using a local file, right? So,
yep.
Perfect.
Okay, that's good. I think we can switch to the next thing now.
Cool. Issues. Vlad is doing all the issues. PhD level issues right here. I'm sorry, Vlad. I'm really proud of you. But I like it.
Yeah, congratulations.
We're just jealous.
Speech to text on iOS 17 cuts off or fails to recognize many words.
Yeah. So I burst into October with breaking changes started with speech to text. Essential part of our .NET community. So as for this bug, I suggest to make some breaking changes in terms of fixing it. In current implementation, when we use like start listening or listen async method, we only receive one parameter. It's a culture info. So you specify what language you want to choose for your recognition, and also cancellation token. Actually, the issue in iOS that by default it uses partial. So when you speaking, you receive partial response from API, just like a progress of your recognition. And sometimes the words are just truncated, and actually it's not recognized as a word, for example. So as a suggestion, and how I see we can fix it, we can instead of culture info parameter, we can add like options, similar what we have in Snackbar, where we have an options class and like pass as many parameters as we want. So it first of all, it will be easier for us. We can extend this class with many different properties if we need them in future. And there we only need to, we will allow people to choose if they want that should report partial results flag true or false. So that is breaking changes, especially for this issue. And yeah, what do you think about this part? Does it sound like?
Yeah, because this is only happening on iOS, right? Like Android doesn't return partial word results, right?
It also returns like all our APIs, as how I implemented them, they return like partial results. I mean, so you like it can be called like continuous results, right? So you do not need to wait for the whole speech, and only that wait some time and receive the whole sentence, the whole text, right? So you receive like when you start speaking and immediately receive some words that you just pronounced. So that is how like partial results works. But for some reason on iOS it cuts some words, probably because like in internal implementation, like it recording like 10 seconds, for example, and like recognize that word and so in that, let's say 10 seconds, can you hear me?
You're fading in and out. I can hear you right now, but we lost you twice.
Yeah, should be okay. Yeah, so for example, for that 10 seconds, when you speak in something, the word may be truncated and just returns the partial result.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So really, so it's just iOS that has the partial word problem, but all the platforms can essentially stream the voice to text results back to us. Did I figure it out? Or did I understand it? Oh, did we lose Vlad again?
I think we lost him. Yeah.
Dang. Well, let's assume I figured it out. I'll say, to answer Vlad's question, I'm cool with adding that as an option, or we could even just
Because of my
include this
interpretation of what
property inside of the class, inside of speech to text implement. So
yeah, he I think the impression I got is he implemented it. It's implemented for all devices, but it was a problem for iOS, but he fixed that, and it works on all devices, from what I understand, from what he said. But like, it was hard to understand.
yeah, he was basically saying that only on iOS will it actually truncate words, where he said like configuration will become config, but every platform will stream back the results in real time.
Okay.
So like Android, as I'm talking, can still stream those words to us, the developer. So yeah, I think Vlad's proposal is just where do we add in this Boolean, this should report partial results? And my follow-up question to Vlad was going to be, what should the default value be? Should it be true because that's already the current behavior? Probably. Or should we break it and make it false because that would be a better experience, and then if somebody wants to set it to true, they can play around with streaming, they can. But I think eventually you get into just the fact that it's an artifact of the operating system. You know, iOS is giving us this data, we're just passing it on to developers. We don't have control over that. So, are you back, Vlad? Oh wait, there he is.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, some internet connection.
No worries.
Don't scare us like that. So, yeah, Vlad, we were saying, I think there's two questions here. One is, where do you add this Boolean? You mentioned you could do it in the MAUI options, but this is so specific to this one control that I
No,
think
no,
it's
no,
just
no.
what
It's not like probably MAUI options. It's an options of the method parameter of start listening async.
Okay, then yes.
So it's specific for speech to text feature.
Perfect, even better. So then my next question is, are you going to set a default value?
Yeah,
Because
default will be true, just because it's actually the same default value that is currently we have. So it will be not changes like for behavior changes. So it will be changes only in API.
so my thought there is, like this bug was literally opened because of the behavior on iOS, and we can, and I agree with the implementation. I think adding a boolean as a parameter, that's perfect, beautiful fix. But then somebody else might come along in a year and say, hey, iOS is cutting off words and configuration is becoming config. So maybe the default should be false, although that might, I know that it'll be a breaking change, but kind
Yeah,
of forward
I
thinking, I think we'd get less issues.
I think Apple for some reason set it to true, and actually for all other platforms it's also true. So it's a good question, especially for iOS 17. Probably it's like Apple added offline recognition. Maybe there are some changes because like offline recognition usually works has not the same quality as an online recognition. Probably that also a reason why some words and some algorithms may be different for that. So we can probably for now we can set it to true as a default value actually by the platform.
And then just,
But yeah, it's actually not like if we document it well,
yeah.
then there shouldn't be an issue for users, especially if they like. It also will be changes in APIs. So people, when they upgrade to new versions, they will see, oh, we have an options, we have some new property. What is that property? What is the default value for that? So probably I hope they will read our documentation.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. I guess if our in our XML comments, like we can add a remarks underneath that says like, when true, operating system might return back partial words as a partial result. Just because again, like we don't have control over that. If we do, we could fix that. But if Apple's just gonna try to interpret the voice and turn it to text the best they can and give us truncated words, then all we can do is pass along that result to the developer.
Also, probably that is because we use like speech audio buffer recognition request. That is like lifetime recognition, right? When you like have a buffer and just reply, and then it just converted to text. So there are different like requests, type of requests. So you can like transcript, let's say like MP3 file, some other kind of audio files, and but yeah, maybe they work better with that partial results. But yeah, for our like recording from the microphone, our speech to text feature, probably that one that we should use.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, let's do it. Let's document it. And then,
Furthermore, it may be fixed in iOS 18. Who knows? Maybe it's even worse. Maybe it's better. Yeah, we'll see.
Judging by the number of bugs we've hit in iOS
Yeah.
18.
I'm still on iOS 16, so
Okay, cool.
Then, kind of like related, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
We have a PR for offline speech recognition.
yeah. As for this PR, so it continues with all breaking changes. So this one is a new feature. It's an offline speech recognition. And as for this PR, I added two new methods, like start offline listening, stop offline listening. Also, there are some changes related to the state of our recognition. So I added a new state called listening, named silence. So that is when your listening is active, but you do not say anything. So like no sound in microphone. So it's a silence. And actually, there is some configuration um, for the timeout of silence. Yes. So, but yeah, then I have a discussion with Sean about actually implementation of this, and probably there will be more changes here. And his suggestion is to why should we have four methods in our interface? So and split it for start listening, start offline listen. Yes, so actually we as an interface we should have only one, like let's say one method start listening and one method stop listening. But we will have two different implementations. So in that case, we will have more classes, right? But they will be separate by the meaning. One class is for online implementation; they will remain without changes for current release, as we have in current release. But we will have absolutely new offline speech recognition implementation. On the one hand, as for implementation, there may be some code duplication, especially for iOS, for Android, right? But as for Windows, it definitely makes sense because there are two different engines that used for online and offline recognition, different permissions. So yeah, this PR, despite of I market is ready for review, probably again have an internet connection. Probably. Yeah.
No, you're here.
Yep,
Oh.
we can still hear you.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, you're back. You're back.
So my question is, what do you think about this such approach where we have only two methods and have two different implementations? I have more benefits of it, like keep interface simple and like for specific speech recognition feature.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
think that makes sense. I love that API design where, yeah, it's just a start, and then I guess we could have an option where they say like allow offline, whatever it might be called. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the start stop with separation between offline and online does make sense to me too.
Yeah, as for implementation, as for all other essential parts, we have that static class where we have implementation default. Yes, speech to text default, and there we can have two different classes, like what actually for interface we should use. As for users, it will be up to them how they register it. So by default, when they keep current implementation, where they register in NDI, it will be online, like I speech to text, and implementation will remain speech to text implementation or default. Don't remember how I actually called them. But if they want offline recognition, they will just need to register it as well. Maybe it will be a kid service. It depends on how they will actually use it. If they need offline, online, and it will be up to them what actually implementation they will use. So
does one do both? Like, so if we have the offline implementation, obviously that is only offline. Would the other one then do both? Let me back up. I'm just trying to think of a scenario where maybe I prefer online, but I'd like to fall back to offline. And I guess we could still do that because we could just still add those as singletons and not map them to an interface. Or maybe that's me answering my own question. You would just add them as singletons and not map them to an interface.
Yeah, it's up to user if they want. Yeah, it's not necessary for them. So interface enlightened abstraction. So it's just meaning for services. So these service should implement this and describes this interface. So it's up to you how you can implement it online, offline, whatever recognition. So I think, and also keeping simple interfaces better than have different meaning for them. And also breaking changes here, I removing listen async method, because actually there are a lot of confusion for users how actually it works,
Yeah.
especially when we cancel. So when we pass cancellation token and cancel, and they receive exception or some result that operation canceled without actually final text that probably they expect to receive, and from they receive only from iProgress. So that's how it worked. And yeah, so there will be only one. So as for finally, to summarize it, so as for this, we will have two methods: start listen and stop listen. We will add a new state for silence so it will be more clear what actually is going with your speech recognition. So we will have three states like started, stopped, and silence. Listening, stopped, and silence, right? Also, there is a changes in results, so it will be not only the text that you receive. You will receive like operation result or speech recognition result, where you will have either result of your text or an exception that operation, where you will have probably operation canceled or some internal issue with directly with the speech recognition service. So in that case, you can react to that changes.
Cool.
I
Sounds
love it,
good.
man. Yeah, I think that'll fix it's because yeah, you're right. We've gotten a lot of issues around the expected behavior being different. So I agree with you on removing that API because it's nothing we're doing wrong, but yeah, it's the expectations that are justifiably misinterpreted. So good call on that. We'll get fewer bugs for sure, or bugs.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I just saw on Brandon's screen that I had to refresh my little schedule here. Brandon,
Snuck one in on you.
yeah, you just
So-
added one on stream.
So here, let me jump back to the agenda because this is actually what I'd like to do. Assuming we'll talk about the PR, assuming everybody agrees with the implementation I did, is get this pushed out as a hotfix. But so this would be media element 412, but we first need to merge this. So nobody go release 412 yet because it's not ready. But long story short, if I jump back to this issue, I spent a long time fixing this bug a couple weeks ago, only to learn that now with the release of iOS 18 that it is broken again. So I went ahead and reopened it. I even include a little image of this is just me using the sample app on iOS 18 with the iPhone 16 Pro simulator. And all I did here was click on media element and carousel view, and it boop immediately threw the exception again. It was like, what? Like, I fixed this. Long story short, turns out iOS changed how they handled what we call data templates in .NET MAUI under the hood in the new version of iOS. So sucks, but the bug's back. So I spent all morning working on this. This is why you guys might have noticed I was late getting the agenda put together. Usually I put this out hours ahead of time, but I was scrambling the last like 15 minutes to get this put together. But long story short, the implementation's not great. I don't love it. And I do hope somebody can come up with a more elegant way to do this. But basically what I had to do, or I'll show you what we were doing. Where's all that code I deleted? Not here. Not here. Media element, not here. That's the code I added. Dang it. All right, we're getting real close. There. Okay, this is the code I deleted. So, long story short, if you put back up even further, data templates are weird. So in .NET MAUI, you use data templates for things like collection views and carousel views. And it essentially means whatever is inside of a data template is not going to get initialized until it appears on the screen. And that's because if you had a collection view with 1,000 items in the list, if .NET MAUI initialized all 1,000 rows, you quickly run out of memory. So the way mobile works is they only initialize the rows that appear on the screen. And then as you scroll, they'll initialize the item before it comes on the screen. And then as one scrolls off screen, they'll reuse that that template with the new data. So that's the problem we're facing here is, and what we were doing last time was we were waiting till the data template was assigned to an item view. So when it's assigned to an item view, then this parent changed event would fire, and then we could go inside of that parent and get, if I scroll down far enough, the items view handler, and we could pass that into media element because media element needs to know our, or specifically, media element needs to know the, where's the code? There it is. The parent, the view controller of the media element. So the media element is inside of an AV view controller, and our media element implementation is a UI view, and it needs to know about that. So long story short, this workaround here that I've deleted in this PR doesn't work anymore. And so the way I'm doing it now, and again, I don't love this, but essentially I got to figure out what that items view is. So like I got to figure out the items view that's being used on the page, and then I can get that items view handler, which is where I can find the AV view controller. God, I hope I got all those words right. So long story short, I try to get the current page, the one that's currently visible. And if for some reason we can't, then I'll throw an exception, but this should only happen in unit testing. There's no reason for a page to be null. And then after that, I get the items view for that page. So I basically traverse all the children that are in the content of this content page or templated page and try to find the items view. And then once I have that items view, this is all the code that I deleted from the other section, just copy pasted, where now I can get that carousel view handler, or I can get that collection view handler, and then we can pass in that as the parent view controller. So the logic here is similar, but what sucks is there's a couple scenarios that I've acknowledged in this pull request won't work. Now, they're super rare scenarios, but here, let me jump back because I included it in the write-up here. So if the page contains multiple items view, I don't know which items view that's on the page is the one where our media element is located. So in this PR, I just throw an exception if we find more than one. So for right now, this scenario will be unsupported. And then the other unsupported scenario is if you're using multiple windows. So I tried to keep in mind in .NET 9, we're moving to a window approach for main page, or we're moving away from main page into windows is a better way of putting it. And similar to if there's two items views on a page, I don't know which one our media element is inside. If there's two, or if there's more than one window, I don't know which window contains the items view that contains our media element. So these are going to be two known issues once we merge this, but these are super, super rare. I'd bet money that more than 95% of our users, probably 99% of the users, if I want to get a little risky with my money, that 99% of our users don't have multiple collection views on their page, within one of which has a media element, and that 99% of our users aren't using multiple windows with a media element. So these edge cases are still going to pop up, and I do think there's likely a way for us to figure it out. So I've added in these to-dos in the code where currently I'm throwing a not supported exception that we could go back and fix it. But because media element is just totally broken inside of carousel views again today, that's why I think it's important to still push this as a hotfix, and then I could open up 2 issues on our repo to address these, and we could circle back to them in the future if somebody, comments on the issues and says, "Hey, this is a blocker."
I would like to add to the hotfix if possible. Right now in Windows, because of a recent fix I did to Windows and several other things, I actually directly broke autoplay on Windows for Media Element. I do have a fix currently that's like literally 2 lines of code. If we could by chance just review that before we actually merge this PR request, that would be nice. We don't need to do that on stream. I'm just saying is if we're going to do a hot fix to fix this issue, we might want to fix autoplay too.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have a PR open for that?
I do. Yes, it's just at the top of the page, I believe, on the current PRs.
Okay. I'll review that one after we jump off the call, and
I would actually be happy just reverting the original changes if it makes things easier, because I'd rather have working autoplay than have just pretty looking code. Because I made changes to make the code more compliant with standards for like for checking for comparison doubles.
Okay, yeah, I'll review it afterwards.
Okay.
But what's everybody's thoughts on this PR? Like I said, I know it's not.
Oh yes,
necessarily
I think it's a great
finished,
idea.
But okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think a hard crash is never good. So I would rather have documented side effects that people can maybe work around.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I'll open up these to-dos as issues, and again, like it's tough to know if anybody is even going to run into this scenario because they are super rare. But then I think once we get that feedback, then obviously.
But I think that's
my main thought is how does this impact if somebody were to open the main sample app right now and simply click on the pop-up window in the media element on the main page? Like, how does this interact with pop-up? Like the pop-up view that I have there.
It
I
doesn't
don't
touch
know.
pop-up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and that's a good thing, right? Like, if you put those 2 to-dos in issues, and no one ever kind of like responds to that, like, "Hey, I'm hitting this," then we should probably not bother to do anything about it. And if we see like 10 people in 2 days, then it's like, okay, people are doing this, so we should fix it. Cool. I see we have a couple of things left. We don't have a whole lot of time left. I see we gained a Sean. Maybe it's good to switch a little bit to talk about that stuff. Like, was it AOT related? I don't know. There was a kind of important-ish thing that Sean has now figured out with like TFMs
Yeah.
and builds. And is that a good thing to talk
Could have
about?
sworn I
maybe
put this
for a
on
bit?
the agenda. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a
where it
little bit
went.
more down.
I think it's at the bottom, yeah.
Oh,
at the bottom.
that's right, because
Yep.
you were joining late.
Because he was kind of late. Yeah.
Well, welcome, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sean.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, I put it in discussions. That's where I messed up.
So Sean,
Right. I guess that's on me.
up
Yep.
with all of this. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, so I didn't do a lot of groundwork. That's Philip, who has reviewed this PR. So I guess over a number of the previous releases, we've seen this type load exception that's been thrown when
Ooh.
running an iOS application. But also there's the issue of things like status bar behavior, reporting the .NET code exceptions rather than the iOS. It's running the .NET code rather than what should be targeted as the iOS on an iOS application that people have reported.
Yeah,
And it all
from what I can
boils
tell-
down to this issue of us implicitly using the TFMs and not explicitly specifying which version we want to use. And then we're relying on the manifests of, I forget which one, whether it's the SDK or whether it's the workload, and ultimately, one of the manifests hasn't been updated to point to iOS 18, and therefore it's then trying to pull in a later version of the workload, something like that, where rather than the workload that we are compiling it against.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but the root cause issue I see here is that it kind of circles back to the fact we can't. Well, in NuGet we can specify a dependency. If we depend on a NuGet package, we could say we require this specific version of this specific NuGet package. But with workloads, we can't do that, or maybe this allows us to do it. I know there was an update in .NET 4.0.200 or 204. I don't know. The latest version of .NET.
8.0.402. I think that's
8.0.
or 400. Yeah.
8.0.402. Yeah. So
Don't confuse people anymore. We're not going back to .NET Framework 4. Okay.
So, Sean, does this allow us to essentially pin to a workload version? Or
no, I don't think it still does.
Is
well, in a way, yes, I guess, because the workload has to support this TFM. So actually, I'll tell you what. If I can share my screen,
of course. Yeah, because again, there's multiple issues hitting us, and this might solve all of them. But basically, what I can deduce is that, or we've confirmed that some users that have, say, .NET 9 installed on their computer try to use the Toolkit, and then their app is using all the .NET 9 MAUI workloads, but the Toolkit's still built against all of the .NET 8 MAUI workloads. And so, yeah, generics become a problem there, and you get these type load exceptions because you're essentially mismatching libraries.
Yes.
Which, I wouldn't say it's our fault. It's definitely a problem with the tooling. But yeah, if there's any way we can make it easier for folks, then.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So I've been shown this handy website as well by Philip, who basically you can interrogate a NuGet package, and it will show you what's inside. So if you look under lib, we've got net iOS 17.2. Now this is version 9.01 of the Toolkit. I know. Then once you look at the next version, 9.03, I haven't looked at 2, but I know that these are different. You'll see that it's bumped up to 17.5, and this comes with newer workloads. And then ultimately, the latest one that we've got is actually pointing iOS 18, which I think that then forces, I think, at the moment, as you mentioned, the RC, the preview 9 manifest points to iOS 18, and the old 8 or the latest 8 doesn't. That's not been updated, I think, is the issue. Therefore, when you then look at there's another article on the Microsoft Docs website which essentially says when the precedence of working out what codes to pull in, it will actually then potentially rely on the net 8 rather than the net iOS 18, because you've got this mismatch as well, which is where I think we're seeing the status bar behavior issue.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I've just been so happy. I mean, like I said, I haven't done the diagnostics on it, but to finally get to a potential understanding of why.
Right.
I've been
actually
testing against this the last few days just to sort of get an idea of what was going on. Right now, I'm using no .9 at all, and I've had 0 issues. I think the issue is the .NET 9 does not ship with the iOS 18 pointed. So iOS 8 comes with iOS 16 pointed or iOS 18 pointed for the workload, and it works fine because I've had 0 issues. But if you install the .NET 9, it will update the workloads and it will be broken for you. And what he's done here will fix all of those issues. So if you have both .NET 8 and .NET 9 installed, his fix will just fix everything.
And so what happens, and this is all very new to me, so forgive the dumb questions, but what happens if, let's say I only have .NET, or maybe a better way to ask it, say it is, I only have the latest version of .NET, the latest version of .NET MAUI, which is targeting iOS 18.0, or rather .NET 8.0 dash iOS 18.0. Would, if the user tries to add our code to their project, would it still allow them to add it?
Well, that's what I tested. That's a specific scenario I tested.
Yeah.
That works.
I think
So
it's greater than or equal to the TFM that you're talking about. So in theory,
Oh, sorry, I'm
9
testing
should-
main. Yeah.
Because ideally, what I'd love to happen is, I mean, well, side note, I'm curious why we wouldn't just bump this to iOS 18, but we can circle back to that. But yeah, ideally, what I'd love to see is somebody tries to add our NuGet package, and like the NuGet package manager fails and says, "Sorry, you're not targeting this iOS 18.0 version or whatever our target is here," and they can't. That'd be great. Because it means the tooling's found a mismatch, or maybe they do add the NuGet package and they get a compiler warning because of the mismatch. Because I feel like that's the big problem now, is like, how do we tell people what we're targeting so that they can target it too, and ideally implement that in a way that's essentially seamless, to where like they don't have to check our docs, they don't have to see our release notes, because that's the problem I'm having as a library maintainer, just in general with workloads, is like, how do we pin to that version? So would this throw an error, or does NuGet not let them include the package if these numbers mismatch?
That will be something to test. I was under the assumption the kind of the rolling forward. So if you're in a more modern version, you're pulling in an older version, that should still be safe. But obviously the other way around, that's when I would expect it to fail.
Because see, I would hope it would pin it.
Is it not greater than or equal to, rather than this?
Yeah, I think the only way we beat this problem, because the problem is if somebody has a newer version, like if they're using .NET 8.0-iOS 18.0, then everything still compiles, and then they get these runtime errors because the type exceptions. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think we need to be able to pin that number so that on their local machine, in their environment, if they don't have this specific version of .NET for iOS installed, then it won't compile. And that's the only way we can match what they're doing, outside of them like reading every release we ever put out, seeing if we upgraded to a later version or a new version, and then like following us in that upgrade path manually.
Yeah, ultimately we want to remove the burden off the user.
I mean,
well,
actually,
both parties, but
I just realized this. I haven't been sharing my screen. Community toolkit.maui. Like, I think what would be awesome is, in here, if we look at dependencies, yeah, so like...
Do you click frameworks? Frameworks is what you want. Or our dependencies as well. Sorry, I missed that detail that you just selected.
Yeah, so... Gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Like, because it sounds like the problem is this is still rolling forward to grab .NET 9-iOS.
Well, no. So the issue is only the .NET 9 MAUI workload manifest points to iOS 18. There isn't a manifest for .NET 8 of the MAUI workload to point to iOS 18, which is why we can't target .NET at iOS 18 yet.
I think it's the opposite issue of the .NET 8 is pointing to iOS 18, and then .NET 9 is not yet fully supporting iOS 18 because that one part that you mentioned is missing. It was missed during the build.
Yeah, as I say, because we don't use .NET 9 in our build pipeline, so
No, we
there's no
don't.
way we could produce something that targets iOS 18 if it's not in .NET 8.
I must have put this the wrong way around then, haven't I?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. Probably, I'm not sure right now what we're doing for our pipelines. I thought we used to pin that, right? Because besides .NET 8.0.402, we also have 402.1, which is the one that for .NET MAUI targets Xcode 16. So probably we're then building against that one, or we've built this one against that. And that's why this happened then.
Gerald, super generic question for you. Do you know if there's a way in .NET for us to like require a workload, like before somebody uses our NuGet package or compiles the NuGet package in their code? Because the other worry I have here, and Sean, I do think this is a step in the right direction. I'm happy to move forward with the PR, by the way. I don't mean to sound like I'm blocking it, but Sean mentioned that if they don't have iOS 18 installed, they still have Net 8.0 installed, and because we also ship a DLL targeting Net 8.0, that becomes the fallback. And so now the iOS specific types we need that are included here obviously aren't included here, and that's another cause for this. So like,
yeah,
what I want is like this right here. So where you can say like, we're targeting Microsoft MAUI controls at least version 8.0.71 and above. And I don't know how to say that for these workloads. Like we only support iOS 18 and above or whatever it might be.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question. I will look into that. I don't know from the top of my head right now, but I will look into that.
Yeah, because I have seen, I didn't look into them either, but yeah, like you said, Gerald, in .NET 8.0.402, yeah, there's a new like workload name, or I forget what they're calling it, but a new way to version workloads. So
workload sets.
Workload sets.
Yeah, I think this what Sean has here is a brilliant way to solve the problem for now.
And you can now specify like -- version, and it will get that specific version.
Because, Sean, we could also include something like this in our CI/CD pipeline. I don't think it solves the problem. Like, I think users will still be able to have a mismatched, say, iOS workload installed on their local environment and try to use our NuGet package.
But at least it won't kind of like auto magically upgrade with like a build, right? Like the hosted agent updated our things, or we do like just generic .NET workload install, blah, 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 and it will install some version that is the latest right now.
Yeah, well, we've been working around that by
the rollback file stuff.
Yeah, well, specifically, so each version of .NET every version of MAUI is pinned to a version of .NET. So you need a new version of .NET to come out for a new version of .NET MAUI workload to come out. So by pinning to 8.0.303, we've essentially pinned, like, this is essentially the same thing as us saying this, but we can just say .NET workload install MAUI, and because we know we're pinned here on 8.0.303 that we're going to get that specific version of MAUI, or I'll say at least that's my understanding of it. So, maybe for now we also add this in, Sean, where we also pin the workload in that step just in case my assumption's wrong.
Yes,
and
yeah,
then we push this out and we see what happens. We check with everybody to see, hey, did this fix your bug? Because I think, there's been like 7 bugs reported since we pushed out a new release. So I think we'll squash a bunch of them, but there's probably 1 or 2 that are like different. Okay, cool. So, Sean, circling back here, any reason why we shouldn't bump this up to iOS 18.0?
I can try it, see what we get.
Let's try and see if it works.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's try that, and let's slap in. So you'll have to figure out what our current workload version is. I don't know that off the top of my head. Sorry, Sean. But then, yeah, in the CI/CD pipeline, let's add in this / version.
Well, it's kind of easy because that page also says that this is supported as of .NET 8.0.400, which is pretty recent. So you can't go much lower than that.
Oh, that's right. So this will require us to bump up to from 8.0.303. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Let's just do it all, right? I mean, things are already broken, so
Can
let's
only
break
get
them
better
so
from
we
here.
can fix them.
Yeah, but yes, yeah, that's fine. And the only other thing was on the MAUI discussion where this originally took place. I think one of the MAUI team developers suggested that it probably is going to fall on the library authors to be explicit their TFMs. So this may well be
Okay. Cool.
It's not a documented approach yet, but it may become a documented approach.
Ooh, are we trailblazers? Sweet, man. Well, thanks for looking into this. Like, I feel like we've responded to so many issues over the past couple weeks. Just like, hey, we'll check that you're on this version and check that you're on the latest version of Xcode. And we're like, I wish we didn't have to specify this or like copy paste text all the time. So hopefully this gets us to some sort of baseline that'll just work and we don't have these issues. Because yeah, at the end of the day, it's just your local environment's different than what we need, what we expected. But I don't know how to fix that with workloads. Hopefully this does.
Cool. I don't know if I have to go. So I don't know if you want to say, hey, it's time, because there's still a lot to go over. If you want to discuss any further with all the things on there, fine by me.
I got a quick one.
Okay. I'm going to drop real quick. So turn the lights off when you're done.
All right. Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, and sorry, Vlad, James, are these ones? I know, like, James, we haven't even merged Media Element 3 yet.
Yeah, that was the main thing. The only really thing I wanted to bring up there was that I addressed the issues that you were concerned about, and I wanted to bring it to the community's attention that they can start testing against that branch. And I would prefer to wait a week or two for that, or maybe up to the next month to have people test against it and go, hey, because this is the big meeting. So if everybody could now take a look at it and start testing against it and try and find something wrong with it, so we can do that, so that we can fix it before we merge it.
Sounds good. I'll drop that in the chat. So anybody, please try out the NuGet package in this PR. If you've never done that before, I'll show you real quick. If you just go to the PR and you go to checks, then you can get to our pipeline. And every time our pipeline runs, it builds a NuGet package for the specific code in that PR. So if you come into here to the published artifacts, that's where you can find the NuGet package. So this is essentially our nightly builds. We don't necessarily publish the nightly builds to a NuGet feed, but they're here. So sounds good. Thanks, James. Where did I go? Shoot, where's my... That's right. And then Vlad, GitHub Actions. Do you want to chat about that next month, or?
Yeah, let's probably discuss it next
Okay.
month. Probably because Gerald is the best person who should.
My two discussions can wait till next month too.
All right, cool. Well, so this one's quick, and the reason I wanted to bring it up because it's literally just. I mean, if we ignore the unit tests, and I guess I also renamed a variable inside of the gesture manager kept being called sender. So I was working on this bug fix. I'm like, why? Like, what is this variable sender? And it's like, oh, it's just touch behavior. So if we ignore the little cosmetic fix, the actual fix here. Oh, and I realized how much this cluttered up the whole PR. Oh, goodness. The actual fix here. Am I going to find it in real time? I said this was going to be quick. Oh, so much clutter. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the only thing I fixed, or what I did fix here, was anytime a long press completed, we would check to see if the long press command was assigned, and if it wasn't, we would just return, which makes sense. We're not going to fire command if it doesn't exist. But the point that was raised in the issue is that right now, when, let's see if I included in here. Okay, so we have a touch gesture completed event, and what this PR is focused on the long press completed. But right now, our touch gesture completed event fires regardless of whether a command is set or not. So if you've attached a touch behavior and the user taps it, you're going to get this event, touch gesture completed, which I guess makes sense because they did touch it and the gesture completed. Doesn't matter if there's a command attached to it or not. But with long press completed, because we're checking to see if the command is initialized, this event doesn't fire. So essentially what this PR is doing is making long press completed match the behavior of touch gesture completed. And so all I do is, like, in the touch gesture completed code, all it checks to see is sender enabled. So that's why in my fix here, I change to say if command is not null to is sender enabled to match the existing behavior in touch gesture completed. So hopefully that makes sense, but this is a really small fix, but it does. I did want to raise the question of, is it right for us to fire touch gesture completed even though there's not a command associated with it? And if so, then we'll move forward with this PR. If not, then the fix should actually be to roll back this behavior. But when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, like they completed a long press, we could fire an event. Just like if they completed a touch, we can fire an event. It makes sense to me, but does it make sense? Did any of that make sense?
Well, I mean, like, your explanation of what happens does make sense. But the thing is what is the default for the rest of the other behaviors that we have? I mean, does
this
this
is
match?
Specific to touch behavior.
Oh, okay.
So none of the other behaviors deal with touch.
I think events should fire it. They should be treated separate to commands. I don't think they should be driven from the state as to whether they can be executed or not. I think the same would be true in MAUI, wouldn't it? Or would it?
I don't know, but basically, we have the option. We changed the event firing behavior on one of them, but yeah, I think it makes sense to still fire the event too.
Yeah, I'm happy with this. The way you've done it, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I guess if you've got a command and an event hooked up, then that's a strange scenario. I suspect in MAUI,
but you could have either or.
Yeah, you should have either or, but it's possible to have both, isn't it? Because they both exist. Yeah, but I suspect a button on MAUI, if you had a command and with a can execute to set to false and a clicked event.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the clicked event would still fire.
Would it? Does the button actually become operable? I would expect the event to fire, but I don't know, because doesn't the button... Because you don't get the visual state changes either, do you then?
I guess you would have to override it and say is enabled equals true, and then you could tap it. I don't know, but basically, yeah, we have two different behaviors going on between long press and touch gesture. So one of them needs to change. Which way do we want?
The PR makes sense. The PR still makes sense.
All right, cool. Then that's it. I didn't want to keep you guys. Just like I said, this was a weird one, and like the more I thought about it, it's like, yeah, I think this is the right way to go. But gosh, somebody, please talk some sense into me if it's not. All right. Well, that's it, gang. That's all I got. Anything else before we call it a day? Whew. All right. Well, James, I'll review that PR you were talking about for Media Element on Windows. Sean, if you can add in that .NET workload version pinning, whatever that's called. I already forgot.
Yeah, and my schedule for this afternoon is to look
Then-
at that PR that you have going and make sure it doesn't actually cause any issues, because I've had issues over the last 2 months where when I've added code, I've caused issues. Specifically, an example, this Windows issue. So before like your code looks excellent, it's probably perfect, but I just want to quickly review it and just finish testing.
Yeah, like you mentioned pop-up, and I'm building the code right now in real time to see if the pop-up works. But you guys don't have to stick around, but here I'll
I'm gonna have to head off, but
Okay, see you later, Sean.
You're
Have a good
Hey,
one.
Sean.
cheers, bye.
Let's see if does this even. All right, so this is the PR that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, James, I haven't touched pop-up yet, so
Just
let's
go to the
see
media
if-
element.
Stop scrolling so much. Hang on. User error. There we go.
Media element, and then there's a pop up there.
So
It
that
should
works,
just
that's
work.
good.
It's on the right.
And it crashes. Dang it.
Yeah,
Okay. That's not fixed in this PR either. I love it. All right. Well, I'll jump on that too, James. I'll tell you what. If you want to review the PR that's open, since we already talked about it, we can push forward with that.
Now, after
thinking they
seeing
popped
that,
up.
I'm happy to sign off on it because it does fix what we're talking about. But just a quick edit to mention that pop up is broken too until you fix that.
Yeah, it's a good call. I'll open another issue, but yeah, just to show you, media element, carousel view. We're back. So
And
PR does fix
one
that,
other
but-
thing I will mention is that when we close the page there, when you click the back button, it will not end the audio or the video.
Oh,
in
weird. I
carousel
hear it in my
view.
headphones.
Yeah, it's not
Oh, this
ended.
is really weird.
You're gonna have to exit the app to fix that. So yeah, that's another issue for that specific PR that either you want to quickly fix or note in the PR, because that's an issue that's incredibly easy to fix. But you can just put for now put a stop event when you in the disposal method.
Got it.
Actually, it should be fixed with .NET 9 with disconnect handler automatically called, isn't it?
Yeah, and there is also an issue completely separate related that people are repeatedly bringing up with disconnect handler with media element. Currently, if we use that at all on pretty much any platform, it will cause issues. Specifically, right now, if we go to full screen or restore screen in iOS, and we have any disconnect handlers at all anywhere in code base, it will crash because that will get called every time we transition from one state to another.
And is that's specific to .NET 9?
No, that's specific to any version of .NET. Like .NET 8, that was there in .NET 7. It just, our specific sample app does not actually call the disconnect handler all in media element. It is probably a good idea to call it because it is required to properly dispose of it, but actually calling it causes so many issues that we removed it like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Just to make things work.
Well, it sounds like we got some work to do on media element. So, all right, let's at least fix a couple of these bugs, and then we can keep knocking them out. And yeah, I say, James, let's see. For that one specifically, let's wait till the .NET 9 update, since, like Vlad said, they're going to disconnect handlers for us. So it would suck to put in a bunch of work to fix that, and then all of a sudden we either don't need it or we gotta fix it again in .NET 9. So
yeah.
All right, gang. Well, thanks for sticking around with me. I said it would be quick, but here we are 20 minutes later. So appreciate your time, guys, and thank you everybody for joining us. Thanks for staying on late with us as well, and we'll see you next month as we stream every month on the first Thursday of the month at specifically 12 p.m. Pacific. So time zones are changing. Keep in mind that we'll always be pinned to the Pacific time zone, as that's the time that the .NET Foundation gave us to hang out on the channel. So we'll see y'all next month.